how the earth was formed. What is the origin of the earth? This controversial topic, or the origin of the earth, the theories related to it, is still debatable and is still controversial because many scholars express their different views behind this origin of the earth. Actually, but most of them believe that they originated from the sun. So now we are discuss about some hypotheses used to explain this origin of the earth. First comes the gaseous mass hypothesis of Kant, then comes nebula theory of Laplace, then comes planetesimal hypothesis of Chamberlain Moulton, tidal collision, electromagnetic theory, interstellar dust hypothesis, and at last, one point to mention very precisely is the Big Bang theory. Okay, so this is the first theory called the gaseous mass hypothesis of Kant. Immanuel Kant, he was actually a German scholar of 1755. He stated that there was actually an existence of a primordial matter. This was he called as a primordial matter. This primordial matter was existing in a form of a hot, in a form of a cold. Remember these lines, remember these words. Cold, solid, motionless. Cold, solid and motionless. Okay. This existed in the form of cold, it was cold, solid and motionless. And since you can see it was mainly consisting of a cloud of gas, we can also say it's a nebula. So cloud of gas is called as nebula. Okay. Now this nebula was primordial, means primitive, and amorphous. Amorphous means it has no definite shape. Now what happened is that this cloud of gas, under gravitational attraction, the particles in them, the particles in this cloud actually started colliding among each other. The particles started colliding among each other. Now since these particles started colliding among each other, this collision, there was an increase in the collision rate. So what happened is that under gravitational attraction there was collision between these particles. This collision actually generated two forces. It was this all hypothesis was according to Kant. Collision rate and a frictional force. Now this collision rate actually generated rotatory motion. This collision rate generated rotatory motion, and hence the motion actually increased, whereas the frictional force increased so much that the temperature also began to rise. And already I have mentioned that this thing was cold, solid and motionless. Now it has got motion again back. So this motionless is not anymore. Further, because the temperature increased, it is also not cold enough. And when the temperature actually increased, we know just how an ice it changes from solid state to liquid state to water because of the influx of temperature. Because the temperature increased, this solid amorphous cloud began transforming into gas. Yes, gas. And since temperature also increased, the size also increased. It led to the increase of size again. Now see, motion is also increasing, size is also increasing. What would happen? Generally, and that's why centrifugal force, and thus leading to the centrifugal force became much more larger than the centripetal force. Centrifugal force means something, for example, this is the sun, and if something is want to move away from the sun is called centrifugal force, or if something wants to move towards the sun, that is centripetal. Petal means seeking and centri means central. center seeking force or the centripetal force increases. Okay, so because of this motion increase and because of the size increase, the what happened is the centrifugal force increased greater than centripetal force, and thus these and there was a separation of the 9 rings. Thus there were 9 rings separated, which later came to be formed as the planets, and the remain except these 9 rings formed our very own sun. So this was the basic gaseous mass hypothesis of Kant. But everything has a criticism.